This judgment clarifies that Flair cannot walk away from responsibility to passengers just by entering into contract with the passengers this way, as the judgment clarifies, through New Leaf.
Thanks a lot, Gabby, for doing this interview with me after the ruling from Federal Court of Appeal is handed down. So, how are you feeling now? First of all, what was the result? Your case got dismissed, right? How are you feeling?
The appeal was dismissed, but the reasons really resolved a very significant issue that now it's clear that passengers will have a recourse against Flair no matter what. That has been an overarching concern here, that passengers may end up with no address for recourse, no one whom they can really go and say and hold accountable when something goes wrong, and no one who actually is subject to the regulatory regime. The Federal Court of Appeal made it clear that the fact that New Leaf is involved in selling tickets still keeps Flair fully responsible for the entire operation. So Flair cannot walk away from any kind of responsibility on the basis that it wasn't us, it was New Leaf. If Flair chose to enter into this kind of relationship with New Leaf, Flair will have to face the consequences if anything goes wrong, which in a completely it is one of those cases when dismissal of the appeal is actually a victory for the passengers because of the reasons and grounds for dismissal. This judgment clarifies that Flair cannot walk away from responsibility to passengers just by entering into contract with the passengers this way, as the judgment clarifies, through New Leaf. What this says is that effectively it doesn't matter who the passengers have the contract with, given that Flair knowingly agrees to this kind of relationship, Flair is still going to be on the hook.
If I get you right, I mean, ultimately, you're not trying to create problem for anyone, right? You're trying to protect the flying Canadian passengers, and ultimately, in this case, seems like the court is saying, well, the New Leaf is not responsible, but Flair is the licensed air carriers. Like someone is not on the hook. It's not like they pointing to each other and no one is on the hook if the passengers get
that's right. The reason that this judgment is a victory for a traveling public is because now there is an address for all claims and complaints. If something goes wrong, ultimately Flair is responsible. So what this judgment clarifies is that if something goes wrong with passengers getting stranded, Flair will have to reprotect those passengers, as I understand, and that it has a responsibility for the passengers under the tariff. And that's very good news. So what this may mean, and of course I'm not privy to the exact financial arrangements, but I would speculate that that Flair and New Leaf may be having a very busy weekend, because they will now need to figure out what this means from Flair's point of view. What kind of financial liability this may expose Flair to, and how Flair can make sure that it actually covers itself for what New Leaf may do or may inadvertently do. So this strikes me as creating a whole new situation that perhaps some clever lawyer who was creating the relationship wanted to avoid. So I think overall, the way I look at the judgment, this looks like a win-win situation. From New Leaf's point of view, they don't have to have a license, as the court ruled. But from the passenger's point of view, now there is an address for them, and Flair can no longer point at New Leaf. This makes clear that passengers do have a recourse against Flair, regardless of whether they have a direct contract with them or not. So it's a game changer in that regard.
So it's a game changer. And for you, would you be talking to Flair anytime soon, or you're going to leave it for now and see what happens in the coming days?
This week I'm quite busy. I'm giving a final exam at Dalhousie on Saturday, and next week I will be marking. But certainly, having some discussions with Flair might be a great idea. I would hope that they understand what the consequences of the ruling are for them, and that they have now far more potential responsibility and liability than maybe they thought or they were hoping to have. They're signing now up for far more. Um, that I would hope that that's going to be understood on Flair's end, and if they're okay with it, good luck to them. It's the overarching concern throughout this matter has been protection of the traveling public, that someone will be there to protect the public. If it is Flair, not New Leaf, let it be. But it looks like now there is at least one party who is accountable and who can be held accountable. And that is really the concern that was overarching this problem.